Good. Hi, how are you guys doing today?
Good, Andrew. How are you?
I'm doing well. So yeah, let's jump right into it. So
Sure.
the first thing I want to know is, so how far is it after every season wraps that you find out what the next season's going to be? Like, what is that process like, finding out where you guys are going to be next?
Well, we don't know by the end of the season. It's things get talked about, but things always seem to change.
Yeah.
And actually, with this season, because of the pandemic, it was pushed, and we weren't even sure that we were going to be able to even do it. And then when the showrunners and writers came up with this idea of it being a western. Um, I know I had a huge sigh of relief because I knew it meant that we'd be outdoors a lot and we wouldn't be inside a studio. And plus, it's just fun, doing a western. I mean, I've done a couple of them, but it's been years. They're just fun to do. It's just fun to work outside and and with this show to work with the same cast again. And yeah, so I think if I think this is the only thing I did during the pandemic. It was a great thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's, as Steve said, I feel like there's always, at the end of the season, there's always like a couple of ideas being thrown around for what the next season will be, but I don't think it has ever been that yet, really. It has always changed. I think it's sort of, I guess it was probably about the actual, like, the first time Dan and Robert talked to me about what the idea for this season would be was maybe like 6 months before we started filming. Like, it wasn't that long in terms of like how much writing they then did quickly after that. And yeah, I was immediately like very, very excited. The way they, pitched it to me was also like incredibly dark, and which is obviously, you can't make an Oregon Trail show without delving into some of that like Donner Party darkness at some point. And yeah, and we do, and it's yeah, it's really pretty incredible. But yeah, so as soon as I heard Oregon Trail, I was very, very excited by that. I'm a bit of a history nerd, so I was like, yes, that was a really awful time period. Let's make something about that.
So what are some of the aspects that you guys were looking forward to about exploring that period?
I mean, I was definitely like, I hoped there would be a couple of like references to the game in there. And, Steve directs an episode, which is all about us fording a river. And there's definitely like some things in there about that. But just generally the idea of it kind of being, as Steve says, a Western and also kind of a road movie, where you are just like starting at point A to point B and throwing as many obstacles at them in the middle as you possibly can.
Yeah, I mean, life was pretty challenging back then, and I think that they tried. The writers did a good job of throwing in all the elements of what could happen. They did make it happen to us, and yeah, it's fun. And for me, to play an outlaw and to get to just be. I loved the relationship between my character and Dan's character because we really are, opposites, and but there's sort of a like a mutual respect, and we like each other, but we're constantly doing that, and that's always fun.
Of course, and I want to ask you, Daniel, about the character. Now, you're someone that has publicly talked about in the past about being an atheist. So I want to ask, do you get a kick out of it when you get the script and you're all of a sudden playing a priest now? Is that something you got a kick out of?
Absolutely. Yeah, I do, but not in a way that I'm like want to make, but like people whose religion leads them to just like sincerely care about other people and want the best for them. Like, I have nothing but respect. Like, I'm not like somebody who's anti people being religious when it has like that kind of great effect. So I think there's a lot of there've been a lot of really amazing religious people, and I think Zeke is one of them. He is just like he's a very moral, caring person. He is obviously too kind of rigid in his religious morality, and that is one of the things that, as the season goes on, he realizes with the help of Benny that like he cannot afford to be this rigid in his morality when he is on the Oregon Trail. But yeah, it's a huge. He's a very sweet, kind, and ultimately kind of hapless character, and yeah, it was really very good fun to play, and kind of watching him become towards the end of the series like almost completely lose face in everything because of the trail and become totally unhinged was was a real fun thing to play.
Absolutely, it's great. I love it. And I wanted to ask Steve a bit of a general question. You're someone that can toe the line between doing comedies and more dramatic work. Like, so was there a moment when you realized that you didn't have to be painted into a corner, that you could switch from doing drama to comedy, drama to comedy? Was there kind of a moment where you figured that out?
I don't know that I've ever, if there was ever a moment. I've just always liked doing different things. I mean, if anything, I'm surprised that I have done a lot of dramatic roles, because when I grew up, comedy was the thing that I really loved. I loved stand-up. I loved sitcoms and funny movies, and I did go to acting school and and all that. But I was as surprised as anyone when I would get cast as a bad guy or a tough guy, or and I feel very lucky that I'm able to do both. That I'm able to do. In the past, I've done a lot of independent film and serious films, but also adventure films and comedies, like this, or working with Adam Sandler, where I really get to explore that side. I just feel grateful that I'm able to do it all. But I don't know if there was ever a moment that I think, actors in general, I think that they love to have variety and mix it up.
And Daniel, do you see the series, the 3 seasons you've done, as being a chance for people to discover that you have a comedic side? I mean, did you kind of going into it, like, have you got a lot of that feedback? People like, I had no idea that you could be so funny, that kind of thing?
I mean, I sort of, every time I do a comedy, I sort of get a bit of that reaction. But so I feel like gradually I'm showing more people, which is great. But like nothing I do anymore is like, do I start out with the idea of like, oh, I'm going to try and show this side, and particularly not with this show, where it has always just been like, oh my God, this is going to be so much fun. Like, even if no one watches it, I'm going to be so happy. Like it's sort of that, like, I love like working with these people and with these writers. So like, yeah, it's great if more people get to see me do comedy, then I'm happy about that. But as Steve said, like comedy is just so much fun to do. It's like a real battle to have to make myself do like completely serious stuff. It is a lot less fun.
I love that. And now for the last question, very quickly, I'm going to go off reservation and ask about something unrelated to miracle workers. And Daniel, it's not a Harry Potter question, so don't worry. It's actually for Steve. One of my favorite cult comedies of all time from the 90s is Airheads. So Steve, this is a question. There's a list of demands in the film that the three characters ask for. So what I want to ask you is, going off of that, which would you rather have? A record contract, a football helmet filled with cottage cheese, 67 copies of Moby Dick, or a naked picture of B. Arthur?
I'm going to leave B. Arthur out of this. I love B. Arthur. Yeah. Not the cottage cheese. Maybe, maybe was it signed copies of Moby Dick? Was that?
It was 67 copies of Moby Dick.
Just 67 copies. Yeah, I'll take that.
Just
that way I could plenty of presents to give friends.
Yeah. Oh, everyone's going to be so thrilled.
Here's your wrap kit.
Right. Thank you guys so much. It was great getting to talk to both of you today.
Thanks, Andrew.